What is going on, guys? As you can tell by the thumbnail, we're back at it again with the budget decks, and today we're going to be taking a look at the newest clan, one of the newer clans that came out in the newest set, the Destructive Raw, the Spike Brothers clan. And today we're going to be taking a look at the budget version of the deck I threw together from the cards that I pulled and some additional investment on my part. If you want to see what I pulled in those boxes, just click right up here and it will take you to the 2 videos of me unboxing my 4 boxes of the Destructive Raw. But getting straight into the deck itself, we're going to start off with one Mecha Trainer. Now Mecha Trainer of course is the starter. When you ride on him, you can draw 1 card. It's the standard skill of all starters, so we're just gonna put him right there. Before we move on to the main deck itself, I'm just gonna quickly run through the triggers. So we have 4 copies of Cheergirl. I actually forgot what her name was. Tiara. I think it's Cheergirl Tiara. Probably that. We play with most Force clans. You do play the 8 critical triggers because you want to push aggressiveness, but with this deck you might want to play a few more draws. Here we have 1 Cheerful Links and 3 of the Perfect Guard draws. Of course, if you have that 4th Perfect Guard draw, that would be a good thing to sub out, but you may still want to consider running 2 or 3 copies of Cheerful Links, having a 6/6 critical trigger, draw trigger split, or even a 5/7 with 5 draw triggers if you just want that little bit of edge to sometimes, get a few more cards than your opponent and to fuel some of the effects that you'll be seeing in this deck. But moving on to the core of the deck itself, we're going to start with the grade 3s. Now the grade 3s are the core of this deck because the main grade 3 is actually not going to be General Seyfried because I only have 1 copy of him, but we do play 1 copy of him. His skill is that once a turn, well, not once a turn, but active during a turn, you can counterblast 1, send 1 of your units to Soul, and call another copy of that same unit. I think you can, it also retires your opponent's, oh sorry, it just sends it to Soul and you can search for a copy of it, call it to Rearguard, and for that turn it gets plus 10,000 power, and you can shuffle your deck afterwards. And its second skill is that when this General Seyfried attack hits on the Vanguard circle, you can Soul Blast 2, retire 1 of your opponent's rearguards in the front row, and stand 1 of your rearguards. And yeah, it's a pretty good effect, and it makes use of the Soul, which Spike Brothers will have a lot of. A pretty good card all around, and of course, as with the VR, it is a pretty good card to run. Staple, maybe about 3 copies if you have the money. But like I said, this is a budget deck. With the VR, it is the cheapest VR out there, but at the same time, it's still an important card for the deck. But the main card for this deck we'll be playing is 3 copies of Unite Attacker. Now, Unite Attacker may not seem like a really good card because he requires a pretty heavy cost of a Soul Blast 7, and that's the effect right there. Soul Blast 7, you can check the top 5 cards of your deck, call as many of those 5 cards as you want to open rearguard circles, or actually any rearguard circles, even if you want to call over something, and then you can put the rest of the cards at the bottom of the deck and shuffle the deck. And then for the rest of the turn, the 3 units in front, in the front row, get 5,000 power each. So if you have 0 rearguards, that's straight up plus 5 for the Soul Blast of 7. And while you may think that Soul Blast 7 cost is pretty heavy, and that is kind of true, at the same time, this deck does have pretty good soul charging capabilities because of all the cards effects, which we'll be running through. Starting off with, of course, 2 Juggernaut Maximum. If you had 4 copies of this, that would be great, because he sends himself to Soul at the beginning of the main phase to call another copy from the deck, and then whenever he's placed, he gets plus 10,000 power. But like I said, this is a budget deck, so 2 copies or 3 copies is actually fine because you won't always need as many copies of him. Of course, if you have it, he'll be good to run, but at the same time, we want to play 2 copies of this other card, Sigiswald, because he allows you to send him to Soul at the beginning of the main phase and countercharge 1 and draw a card, but also, as part of a cost, you actually send 1 card from your drop zone back to the bottom of your deck, which means you can recycle triggers, and yes, that includes your Perfect Guard triggers, any other kind of triggers, or you can send even extra copies of Juggernaut Maximum. Like I said, if you had maybe 3 copies of this and 4 copies of Juggernaut Maximum, then you play a mix or assortment of these cards as your boss units. But all in all, those are the cards you want to get. Of course, with Seyfried, he allows you to reuse the 10,000 power that you get because this is for turn. But then again, it is also a larger investment, so make of that what you will. But we're going to be moving on to the grade 2s, and the grade 2s are going to be pretty staple. We start off with 2 Spike Bouncer, who have a very pretty strong effect. When you call him, you can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 as well. You can search the top, the cards. You can search X number of cards where X is the grade of your Vanguard. So if you have a grade 2 Vanguard, you search the top 2 cards, grade 3, top 3, and you can call one of them to rear guard and shuffle your deck, or just put the rest at the bottom of your deck, I think. And for him, the rear guard, when he is the first skills are Vanguard and rear guard, but for the rear guard skill, you can Counterblast 1 when his attack hits, send him to Soul, and draw a card. So pretty good for recycling and fueling the Soul for either Siegfried or Unite Attacker's skills. Next, we run just 2 Bombing Tailback because if you have 4 copies of this, like I said, you can run 4 copies of this, but honestly, you probably don't want too many copies of him as well, even though he's a pretty decent card. And Bombing Tailback does provide that extra 10,000 power shield, which can be pretty useful, especially for with the Mega Colony card and Lion that prevents you from guarding with Sentinels and normal units. But with this card, you can guard and intercept from the field. Moving on, we have the very staple 4 copies of Treasured Black Panther. His skill is when he attacks, you can Soul Blast 1. He can gain either 5,000 power or 15,000 power. But if he gained 15,000 power at the end of the turn, send him back to Soul, or send this card to the Soul. So it is pretty good if you just want to keep on shelling out attacks at 15,000 power, or you can boost him to 25,000 power for the turn and send him to Soul, again fueling the cost. Refueling the cost that he himself took out with that Soul Blast, allowing you to use the grade 3 skills. And last of all, but certainly not least, we have one of the core cards of the deck, High Speed Baraki. Now, Baraki's skill is pretty much the exact same skill as Juggernaut Maximum. He can be sent back to the deck, sent to Soul, and search the deck for another copy of him and shuffle the deck. And whenever he's placed, you get plus 10,000 power. Now, it's a pretty good skill, and he will be one of the main units you use to attack along with Juggernaut Maximum. But, not to lower the importance of grade 1s, we're going to go through the grade 1 lineup as well. Starting off, we have 4 copies of Wonder Boy, a very, very essential card. He not only allows you to keep on calling copies of him, and he gets, I think they just shuffled him back to fill the Soul, thin your deck, and by the way, all the cards that search cards from the deck actually thin the deck so you hit your triggers more consistently, which is actually the strongest point of the deck. The fact that each of these cards will be thinning the deck, everything that calls, everything that summons more from the deck, Spike Bouncer calling more things from the top. All of this is making sure that you hit the triggers more consistently. So you have 4 copies of the Spike Brothers Wonder Boy, and when he is called onto the field, he gets plus 5,000 power for the turn if you fulfill the cost, which is really not a cost, it's more like a benefit. You choose one other card besides any grade 1 in your drop zone and put it at the bottom of your deck, which allows you to again recycle all your triggers, including those perfect guards, critical triggers, and heals depending on which one you want most in your deck, or recycling cards like High Speed Baraki so you can have more powerful turns, or even copies of Juggernaut Maximum that you may have Soul Blasted out so you can call another copy of Maximum as well. So this deck really doesn't need too much of a field because you can always just keep on calling those same cards, but at the same time the weakness is that if your opponent retires the cards, you have to have some way to get them back. Next we play 3 copies of Gyro Slinger. 1, 2, 3. His skill is that when you call him, you can send one of the cards in your hand to Soul, and then you can search the top. It's the same skill as Spike Bouncer, search the top however many cards as your Vanguard's grade. So if your Vanguard's grade 3, search the top 3 cards, call 1 to rearguard, and that unit gets plus 5,000 power. Pretty strong effect, and like I said, helps to thin out the deck. And because you're sending those other cards at the bottom of the deck, and then you'll be putting more triggers at the bottom of your deck, and then finally when you do a shuffle, when you search for say Baraki or Wonder Boy, then you get those triggers shuffled back in. We also play 4 White Tide Ends. His skill is that when there are 4 more rearguards, when he attacks, he gets plus 10,000 power, making him 18,000 on his own, making him very ideal target for boosting, because you can call him to boost first, or even if you need to attack him, when you call him with Unite Attacker, he's an 18,000 attacker on his own, and then if you put another 8k behind him, that's 26,000 power without any other power boosts. Of course, in the Force Clan, you get all those Force markers, and whatever you have on the field stays on the field. Last but not least, for Commander, I think this is Fierce Leader Gary Gannon, and his skill is incredibly useful when he boosts attack that hits a Vanguard, you can send him to Soul, draw 2 cards, and put one of those cards at the bottom of the deck, again filtering through the deck even more to get those triggers. You draw 2 cards, so you take the card that's not the trigger and you put the trigger back in the deck, and then you shuffle it in, and soon you have a thinned out deck with more than 50% triggers, and you can bet on those triggers to get those double trigger passes and win and clinch the game, which is also one of the reasons why you might want to run more crits, because crits of course deal more damage and will win you the game faster. So that was the entire deck review, and I hope you guys enjoyed this deck review. I'm probably not going to be playing this clan just because I need a little bit of cash, and I'm going to be playing Mega Colony already, but for now I might try it out and see how far I go with this deck. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, and I will probably try to do a Tachikaze deck review, budget deck review as well, but you will definitely be seeing my Mega Colony deck, which is almost ready, and one more budget Mega Colony deck that doesn't require any VRs that you can build for probably less than $50. That will give you a fun time, because Mega Colony gives you a bunch of interesting cards, and that's why I'm playing this set. But let me know which set you guys are looking forward to in the Destructive Roar out of these 3 clans, and if you guys don't want to play these 3 clans, the next extra booster or even the next full booster with the AL4 clans or the Asia Circuit Champions, I myself will be looking forward to Grand Blues. But until the next set, until the next video, I hope you guys have fun playing Cardfight Vanguard, and remember, it's okay to play casual.